All right. Good evening once again, everybody, to the Cashflow Chronicles. So today, I have some sad news, some very sad news. And it's something that I said yesterday that I wouldn't do for the time being. And, I just had to reevaluate it. And I just didn't understand why it looked so attractive. But I sold Palantir covered calls. I had to sell Palantir covered calls because the premiums were so juicy, more better than I was anticipating. So I think initially what I was kind of forecasting was that I wasn't going to sell. Oh no, did I exit out of the screenshot that I took? Damn it. Anyway, I had a screenshot of what I was going to share, which was the contracts that I had sold. And maybe what I can do is I'll pull up Robinhood because I don't want to go into my Fidelity account. But you'll get a good idea as to what I'm talking about, and it might be a good educational piece for people as well. So let me hop into Robinhood here, and let me just double check everybody can see. Cool, everybody can see. So Palantir today and yesterday have done relatively well. It's up 18% for the week. And so yesterday I came with a strong statement saying that I would not sell any covered calls. And when I was thinking that, I was thinking like the 22, 23, 24 range. And I was like, it just doesn't make any sense, right? It's just too much risk. I could see the stock popping 25 to 30% in the matter of a couple days, just based off of any sort of news that kind of came out. And so when I saw the stock kind of opening up and staying in the $20 range, I was like, let old Matty here take a quick gander, right? And so if you're looking at the 4th, which is this Friday, so 3 days from now, the premiums aren't so juicy. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that it's pre-earnings, right? But even still, if you have a little bit of a wanton gander, you could still sell some things and get some money. But you have to think, I have 40 contracts. Some of you guys have 100, could sell 100 or 150. I know there's some big ballers out there. But I was looking and I was like, you know what? I was like, where does the risk versus reward actually start to get enticing? And I was like, I'm staying away from anything below 25 in terms of covered calls. And so I've moved to the August 11th. So 10 days from now. So Monday morning. So about 6 days from now, 7 days from now, we have earnings pre-market, or maybe it's after market now. I think they switched to Monday afternoons, market, after market versus before on Tuesdays. I think so they switched to Mondays. So, which is fine. I have no problem with that. The thought that I then had was, okay, if I were to, let me just take a quick gander. And so I did, and I was like, well, I'm not selling at 25, that's for sure. But I did see these bad boys at 30, and I was like, okay, at 30, you're looking at a pretty decent chance of profit. The delta's up there, even with the higher volatility, implied volatility at 160 odd percent. I'm like, all right. I'm like, you need to move this thing 50% from where it's at today. Is it possible? Yes. But my thought process being, and this happened in 2021, so I have a little bit of experience with this. I'm not saying it's going to guaranteed work out. But what I think might end up happening, even if it does say go to $30 a share, $35 a share, what I can do is easily just go out and sell another contract. And the implied volatility of this thing, if it goes to $30 a share, is going to be so crazy that you could continue to just roll. And eventually Palantir is going to hit some sort of lull. There is a possibility, of course, that it continues to run. But anyway, my thought process was, if in the short term, I anticipate Palantir to be a stock that, could potentially be a $400,000 to $500,000 position. But if by some chance on Monday of next week or the following week thereafter, it gets to $120,000 position in my portfolio, in the short term, I'm going to be okay with that. What I will do, of course, I'll continue to try to roll. But in the short term, if it honestly goes up that much, you kind of have to live with it. Am I going to be happy about selling at 30? Absolutely not. I feel like I'll leave some money on the table. But one of my biggest regrets in 2021 was, maybe not taking some of that love off the table and waiting for a different day. Anyway, I don't want to make this entirely about Palantir, but I wanted to kind of clickbait some of you guys that I sold Palantir, but in reality, it's covered calls. In reality, what I ended up doing, I set a limit for 15 per share, which ends up being $15 a contract because each contract's 100 shares. For those who don't know much about covered calls, it didn't go through initially, so I lowered it to 14. For some reason, it filled at 16, so I sold 40 contracts at $16. It's like 630, 640 bucks. So after commissions and everything, I walked away with about, I think it was like 620 bucks. So worst case scenario, Matty Moolah has to sell $120,000 worth of Palantir and 620 bucks. And I think my cost basis is like 50 grand. So I wouldn't be happy with it because I plan on Palantir being a $400,000, $500,000 position. But in the short term, if it has that kind of buzz, maybe I'll be really sad, right? Maybe Q2 earnings is going to be way better than everyone expects, or at least I'm not expecting the moon, but I think a lot of people are. So anyway, the fact that the premium is so high, the implied volatility is so high, I couldn't let that walk away. So there's that. So I'll stop with respect to that. But today I want to talk about a company and then I'll get into questions. So hopefully this doesn't take too long. I'm glad that 38 of you guys are here. So much appreciated with that. Hot Chris is going to be back tomorrow. So I know all 38 of you are waiting for Chris to show up. So if you want to sign off now, that's perfectly fine. I can understand within a minute or two if that goes to zero. No pun intended, because I know I like to say that a lot. But the thought that I wanted to share with you guys today, and you probably already saw it because I shared my screen, is AutoZone. And some of you guys are like, AutoZone? Who gives a flying F about AutoZone? I do. Okay. I own a lot of it. No, I don't. I don't own any of it. But I just want to display, because sometimes buying back shares can have extreme benefits to the share price. And so what we're going to go into a little bit today is looking at AutoZone. Of course, this is from IPO, so this is 350x, not 35x. But what data I do have is kind of from like the early 2001 timeframe. And if you go from the early 2001 timeframe to now, you can get anywhere between a 35x to an 80x and it's because those numbers around 2000, 2001 were so volatile. But regardless, if you think about it as a 35x and 80x, you'll get the idea as to what I'm trying to display here. So let me share my screen again with you guys and hop into, sorry, it's going to be a little bit of a streamception. You can see a little bit behind the scenes here, but looking specifically at, and this is kind of what I was talking about, it's a $2,500 stock. The market cap's about $45 billion. Looking back here, it was at about $1.52 back in the day. Why am I think I'm messing up here. I don't remember what it was back in the day. Let me unclick here. So 37 bucks. And now we're at 2,500 bucks. So let's just do some quick math. It's going to be wrong, but you guys will understand. We're going to be in the same magnitude, right? What's the difference between 3,500 and 8,000%, right? So it was 2481 divided by, I think it was 35 bucks. You end up with a 70x return, right? In that particular sort of scenario. Actually, you have to technically do the 2481 minus the 35 divided by 35, 69, 6,900, 420%. So the thing that I wanted to highlight, okay, so that's the 69 that you get to. This is the amount of shares outstanding from around that same time period in 2001. I know it wasn't verbatim. I think where I went from for that 6,900% return was April of 2001. Here we are at the end of February. So let's just call this 110 million shares. And you're sitting there now at 18 million. Whoops. Divided by 18 million 390,000 shares. So at this point, in reality, you would do the inverse of this, but I'm just trying to show you, even if the earnings and the basically everything about the company stayed the same except for the share count, right? Because you're buying back so many shares. It had 110 million shares on the market. Now there's only 18 million. So even if the market cap stayed the same, which I think, I can't do the math mentally, but it's a $45 billion market cap. So it'd probably be like a $500 million company back then. So even if the market cap stayed the same, the earnings stayed the same, and they were able to just buy back this amount of shares, which they've reduced pretty much by 80 odd percent, more than 80%, you'd now see that the stock price itself would go up six times, right? So 600% just from this. So you would have went from $35 stock to a $200 stock. And now you're sitting there. It's like, well, why is now the stock 2,500? It's not 210, Matt. You're not making any sense. It's like, okay, my guy, give me a damn second. I'll show you. I'm just kidding. I'm feisty today. I'm sorry, guys. So what you'll now see is we went from $350 million in earnings back then to now being at a $2.9 billion in earnings. And that's around the same time, the 2001 time frame to now. So if you were to just take this 340 million, so let's just call it 2.9 billion divided by your 340 million, that's an 8x, 8.5x. So multiply that by that 6% that we saw earlier. Now you're looking at a 51x, right? How did I get this number, right? How did I get the 51x? So just going from the earnings increase, it was an 8.5x. But you also remember, so even if the earnings went from where they were at 350 million to now 2.9 billion, that's an 8.5x. What you also did was reduce the share count by 80 odd percent, which increases the price of the stock, even if the earnings are flat, by 6x. So you went from 8.5. So not only did you buy back in basically the share price itself, even if the earnings were flat, go up 6x. So the $200 per share. Now you have to multiply it by another 8.5%, or sorry, 8.5 times, due to the fact that the earnings have grown. So let's take that same stock price, the $35 where it was back in 2001 time frame. Let's just do the earnings side first, because we just kind of looked at this. You have the 8.5x based off of the earnings growth. And this is assuming the price to earnings stays flat, 20x, price to earnings this whole time. So that's obviously some of the fluctuation in there as well, but I'm just kind of giving a magnitude of what you can kind of see. And now you're taking into account that you bought back 85% of the shares. So let's multiply that by 6 now. You get to $1,900, $1,800, right? It's not the $2,500 you guys are expecting, but I'm not anticipating that all these numbers are 100% correct. But you're in the right magnitude, right? $1,700 just with some quick mental math. It goes to show you that if you have a company that is truly understanding on how share buybacks work and they execute it appropriately, the benefit that a stock might see, the stock price might see. Now, this is something that I anticipate will continue to happen with Google. This is something that has been shown with Apple. Apple's a really good example of this because they bought back hundreds of billions of dollars worth of shares on the open market. And so when a company is doing buybacks, don't just automatically flock to the company, right? Don't think that it's going to be an AutoZone where you're going to see a price appreciation of 35, 50, 80x or whatever, mostly based off of just slight, granted, the earnings did increase by 8.5x, right? I mean, you can't give them crap. Over the past 20 years, they've 8.5x their income, and they've done a massive expansion throughout the United States. So they've done a great job with that. But you can't expect everybody to do share buybacks like AutoZone. So my hope that what you guys will do, and hopefully you take away from this quick video, is understanding that it's pretty easy to go and look at shares outstanding for some of these companies. Like, let's look at Apple and how they've done with their share buybacks, and you might be able to get a quick flavor for it and be like, oh crap, this company actually knows what they're doing. They have market cap, don't they have buybacks, shares outstanding? So of course they've done some splits, right? So if you kind of adjust for splits and stuff like that, even since 2020 when they split last at 17 billion, they're already down to 15.79 billion. So I'm sure if you were to incorporate and like normalize all that, how the stock prices continued to be absolutely absurd. In terms of share buybacks and stuff of the like. Granted, earnings has also been absolutely insane over the past few years. It's 100x its earnings since 2004. So, or 50x its earnings. Sorry, it's pretty crazy when you think about it in that perspective. I'm not even sharing my screen, so let me share that really quick. The Apple earnings went from 2 billion in 2004. Now it's 116 odd billion because of all the iPhone sales. And I basically was just showing the shares outstanding, the sawtooth, because of all the share splits that you see. They don't want the stock price to be, 800 bucks, back in 2014 when it was 800 bucks, they did the split and then they split it again, here in 2020 to make sure that it is what it is. But I also want to just take a quick look at Google because I mentioned it. Might as well just look at it. What does this look like? And of course, they have the stock splits in here as well. So I did the wrong one. So of course, it's going to be hard to kind of see. Yeah, of course it is. I wish you could zoom in, but I'm assuming if you zoomed in really well, it does a really good job. So let's just take a quick look, of everything. So did that 2-for-1 split where they split the company into GOOG and GOOGL. And you can see they were buying back a crap ton of stock, like 1% or however much percent a year. But it wasn't until more recently, granted, they kind of trimmed off a little bit and they were giving a lot in share-based compensation. But you can kind of see that more recently they were kind of buying back a couple percent a year. So some food for thought about companies and share buybacks and how effective they are. There are a lot of companies out there, and I'll get to questions now, that focus specifically on make sure share dilution remains flat. So even companies, if they don't have a very large share buyback program, a lot of people get upset by share-based compensation. And so a lot of companies will issue share-based compensation share buybacks, meaning if they distribute 100 million shares, they buy back 100 million shares just to make sure that that's that. So anyway, that's that. Hopefully that helped a little bit. And let me know if there's any questions. I'll be just running through really quick some of these questions, and I'll call it a night, order some dinner. I got home later than I expected, so appreciate that. Matt, do you sell puts on the extra margin from your portfolio or strictly adhere to cash secured puts? I do a little bit on margin, and I try not to do too much. But it all just really depends, specifically also on the risk. So I've gotten burned in the past by using margin with this. So selling stuff on things that were crazy. And so I did end up going in the hole a little bit, which I've now paid off, but it's something to kind of consider. I think maybe if the portfolio gets large enough, I would consider doing it more so. But for now, I've kind of laid a little bit low on the cash secured puts, unless I have cash, really. Hold on, 170 Palantir calls. Yeah, man. You mean the 170 contracts or the strike price? Iceman, what's going on? Midwest, what's going on? Alliance player would sell Palantir. I like that. That's funny. Yeah, man. I was a shadow priest, man. Shadow priest, a human shadow priest. It was a good time. Low key admits the clickbait. That's right. Love the Palantir thoughts. Thanks, my brother. Tax implications have called away. It's very true. Chris did get stuck at the airport. I don't know how much I should say, but yeah, I got stuck at the airport. So tomorrow, I think Chris will come back, unless he hates me, which I don't blame him if he does. Just catching up. Sold count the Palantir cover call. I think you're the one that inspired me. I was looking at tweets this morning, and I was just like, you know what? If this guy sold some, let me see. Dex, much appreciated. I know Amit's probably still on. So I wouldn't be surprised if he was. And so I appreciate you stopping by. Buying more shares back. Not 100% sure what you're talking about here. Oh, what are the tax implications? I don't know. I need to really look at this because I've just assumed now, somebody told me that that basically if you have a long-term position like I do, the majority of my shares are long-term. Some of them are probably still under a year. But if you sell cover calls, that somehow magically that makes that a short-term. And I don't think that that's true, but somebody told me that it was. So if anybody knows, let me know in the chat. I thought, of course, that selling the premium itself would, of course, be taxed as ordinary income, but not that it would make your long-term shares short. That just didn't make any sense to me. But somebody tried telling me that it was, and I was like, I guess my guy, but I haven't looked, because a lot of my shares I've been holding since 2020. I've had about 2,500 shares since 2021, and more recently, the last 1,500 shares I've bought probably over the last 18 months. So, ready to crash. Yeah, these chairs make it ache sometimes. I get it, man. I sit and sit all the time. That's expensive. I don't know exactly what you're referring to, but yes, maybe you're talking about the AutoZone shares at 2,500. Hey, Matt, do you still talk to Kyle? I don't. I wish him all the best. I know he's making some moves. I know he's done some trimming of the portfolio. I do still watch his streams and cheer him on from afar. But it seems like he's moved on with his life and he's going a different route. And I applaud him for that. I think he's doing a great job, and he has to do what's right for his family. So it is what it is. Midwest, Mr. Cold, 420. Oh, 69, 420. Hell yes. Markets, our AutoZone's market cap is that big. I mean, yeah, you wouldn't have thought. And the price to earnings is really only like a PE to 12, because you saw there $45 billion market cap. Let's just do it real quick. $45 billion market cap divided by 2.9. The PE is like 15 to 20, right? So it's like not like you're paying 30x multiple or something for the stock. You know what I mean? It's actually relatively cheap. Now, is it going to continue to grow? How does it work on an e-commerce? Are they starting an e-commerce business to continue that margin increases or something like that? So anyway, just some thoughts on that. And Jelly, thank you so much. Did you sell Palantir? Is it just clickbait? I guess you'll have to watch the first little bit of the stream to find out, my friend. Damn it, Ren. He sold me out on this one. Just messing with my guy. Interesting. Very appreciative. Do I still collab with Passive Income Investor? No. We had a little bit of a falling out, and we didn't see eye to eye on some things. And to be very frank, it was mostly about crypto. And in that respect, we just didn't see eye to eye on things. And with that, I, basically left the Rich Gang group, and I wish them all the well. They can reach out to me if they so want, but it seemed like they were more interested in Kyle's opinion than mine. And I get that. Everyone's entitled to their opinions and who they follow. But no, I don't do collabs with Passive Income Investor anymore. Are you still bringing this up as sorry, hold on. Bringing this up as you think this is a route Palantir is likely to go if or when they mature? I really don't know, man. With respect to Palantir and their future thoughts, I've been thinking about it. And, I never saw Apollo coming. So I've been using, I guess, for the people that might not know, the 47 of you, some of you know, some of you don't. Sorry, I don't know what the hell's on my computer. I'm just getting it off on my laptop. one thing that I don't know is, or didn't foresee, was I was using Foundry. I understood that. So I've been using Foundry since 2017, 2016. I don't know. The exact timing is kind of not really important, but it's been, longer than 5-6 years. And at the time, Gotham was really their only product. They had just kind of brought the commercial product to market. And I didn't see Apollo coming out. I didn't see AIP coming out. So those were kind of new platforms to me. And that happened seamlessly, right? Like Apollo is, if you think about it, what I think they tried to do is they try to assist and partner with companies, which is this is where I'm kind of getting to. They partner with companies to try to figure out their problems, and they build software products to help solve those problems. So if a company has a problem, if it's never been solved before, they'll make custom software. So what did they find out? Rolling out software on a multitude of different levels and having different security allowances and stuff like very difficult. So they created Apollo. And then they obviously saw the benefits of utilizing a chat box like a Bard or a Chat GPT or something like that. And so then they created AIP. So what are they going to create next? Are they going to create specific applications which can be built on Foundry as an engine, but are they going to create other specific platforms or something that are specific to different ways of working, communication, right? The operating system for the modern enterprise communicating. Like, are they going to try to recreate a Slack? And it makes me think, like, if I remember correctly, they were using Slack or something like that when then they were working in 2016, 2017. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're not using Slack anymore, or that they are using Slack anymore. They could be using an internal sort of thing. And so I'm fairly confident that within the next 5 years, you're going to see another 2 platforms be coming out of Palantir. And my thought process is like, when they figure out more and more and more, what are they just going to build off of Foundry versus what are they going to build as a separate platform? And that's where I'm kind of lost, is like, does Foundry have its own big sort of watershed moment, or do they go with more of like once they've established a thought process here, once they've established a cadence with a lot of healthcare systems and supply chain management systems, do they kind of say, okay, Foundry is the engine, yes, got it, cool, and it integrates with AIP, but Foundry is more for like your data storage and connecting up to your data lakes and stuff like that. And then you have a separate application that's specific towards healthcare that, yes, is built in Foundry, but now it's more of an operating system instead of that. So it's kind of like a focused one, because the thing that's beneficial and not beneficial about Foundry is it gives you a lot of ability to flex within the operating system. So if you know how to code and you know what you're doing, it's really awesome. So somebody that has that sort of IT background and software engineering, background, they could excel extremely well utilizing the Foundry platform, being able to code in Python and create applications. And I've seen that at UDoc very well. But I anticipate that for the time being, until they really hit some sort of stride in actually getting to the place where cash flow is super huge, I think that they have to almost hold off on doing any sort of buybacks. In 10 years time, do I see it? For sure. I just don't understand, with the margins that they're creating, what they can do to spend the money fast enough, personally, other than buying and investing in some of the businesses. I think that there's a lot to be said about working with distressed businesses, not distressed. That makes it sound worse than it really is. With businesses that are 4th or 5th in class, in, say, I'll just throw something at woodworking, right? So there's a bunch of woodworking companies that are public, and they work within Palantir to figure out the best ways to woodwork and create products and get their margins up and stuff of the like. At what point do they invest in a company like that and then sell part of that over time once that company becomes number one in their field, right? So helping when the companies have low market cap, or do they continue going the path of investing in the frontier like they have with the SPACs? I don't know, and I just see it's going to be a bigger problem, and I don't think it's right to issue dividends at the moment. But anyway, I could go on this for ages. I'm still trying to think, but I still think there's a huge runway for additional platforms that I don't think we are privy to as of yet. So yeah, Ryan, what's going on, my guy? Hope things are going well. It shouldn't make the actual shares short term. Yeah, exactly. That's what I thought. But somebody tried telling me otherwise. They're like, no, man, like, I swear to God, it makes the other shares short too. And I was like, I don't really think. It counts as the sale event if the covered calls are called away, but the stock purchase, not the covered call. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what I thought. What's going on, Josh Storm? Much appreciated you stopping by. Hot Coal. Check out the premiums, my guy. I think it could be a good opportunity. And I know from that's another episode I want to have. I'm skipping to your next thing, which is Intel. I was reading a lot, and I watched a quick thing that was released 3 weeks ago. I don't know if it was CNBC or somebody else, about all the Texas foundries that are going up. Not Foundry Palantir, but foundries for like Intel, Samsung, and all those companies that are creating foundries to create semiconductors, Texas Instruments being one as well. So basically onshoring, instead of using Taiwan as these semiconductor builders, Texas is now kind of growing to be. And I think that within the next 3 to 4 years, I think part of it was due to the Inflation Reduction Act, but also part of it was associated with some 2020 or 2021 bill when we started to have supply crunches for semiconductors. You guys are probably familiar with that. As either the Biden administration or the Trump administration said, we're not doing this again. So what do you do at UDOC? Are you a software engineer? I am not. I am nowhere intelligent enough to be a software engineer. So sorry, Joshua. I appreciate that question. I'm gonna just go back to answer and finish Cole's thought. So yeah, with that, I just want to finish that thought. With that, I think that there's an opportunity to look at when some of these things come online and how that impacts margins and stuff of the like. Specifically, if like they can't farm it out to TSM, Taiwan Semiconductor, and stuff like that. What inspired share backup information, Apple and Google? I gave an example about AutoZone buying back shares and how it was really good. I don't know if you missed that portion of the show, but I think it's really useful to see. A quick rundown. AutoZone, because I know some of you guys joined in here. Appreciate 60 of you in here. I think it's probably the most I've done on my own, so I appreciate that. AutoZone increased earnings from 2001 timeframe from like 350 million to about 2.8 or 2.9 billion recently, and so that's an 8.5x in terms of earnings growth. And then what you then see is the share price has gone from $35 to $2,500. So that's about like a 40 to 80x. I forget exactly what it was. So you're like, okay, well, the earnings have gone up. Price to earnings has stayed flat around 20. So going from where it was at $350 million in earnings to 2.9, that's only an 8.5x. Where do you get the other 6x? And the other 6x or whatever was basically buying back. It was close to 95 million shares or 90 million shares, going from 110 million shares outstanding to 18.5 million shares outstanding, which if you inverse that, that's basically buying back 85% of the shares. If you inverse that, that's a 6x. So you multiply the 6 by the 8.5, you get like a 40, 50x. And so that's where you get from a $35 share price to like a $1,800 share price. And I'm sure there's some mess ups in between there. Maybe they didn't give the exact, maybe I'm not picking the best price within 2001. But it goes to show you the benefit of what buybacks can do if executed appropriately. But back to this at UDOC, which is the undisclosed oil company that I work for. Um, and to give everyone a kind of an idea, I call it UDOC because while I love the company I work for, I just don't want to openly display it. If you're really looking, I'm sure you can go on LinkedIn and find out. And, or I can go on a stream with Sachin and he'll tell you outright, even though I say I don't like to publicly display it. But I just don't want to get any problems with HR, that I'm trying to openly, promote my company. It's not me. I'm trying to promote financials. I'm trying to promote myself. So at UDOC, I'm not a software engineer. I'm a reservoir engineer, which basically integrates a lot of the products that geophysicists, which look at seismic and structure and waves, sine waves, which are like sound waves, geologists, which are much smarter than I am, and basically our facilities engineers to try to understand the best way to create projects and come up with investment decisions, whether or not it's prudent to invest in certain fields or wells or what have you. And so I also kind of look at, just based off reservoir energies, pressures, rates, all that stuff, the trends, and see where they're going and see if it makes sense as to how much oil we have remaining in the ground, how much oil was there in the first place, stuff like that. I am far from the CEO. The CEO is on TV a lot. I am not on TV at all. So I'm on YouTube, if you consider that TV, but not at all. Have I tried Gotham? No. In Foundry's gone through many different names. Like Quiver used to be called Monocle, and then I think Quiver used to be called something else. And then they said, well, they're getting rid of Monocle. And I think that they started doing work with like GM or somebody. And so things have morphed over time, right? When you're the first or one of the first people to be using from a commercial side the product, of course it kind of changes to an extent, but I think it's changed for the better. Initially it was kind of like difficult to adjust because you get used to some things working, but at the end of the day, it's a great product. And I think the best thing is that we've almost built in-house talent to be able to use Palantir, and the way that they think now is about how the ontology works and how to best categorize data, so that way we can get the best and most out of our data. So no, I haven't used Gotham to answer your question, but hopefully that was a little bit of love. Doing any program or software engineering, trying to see how he uses Foundry. Oh, I use Foundry just to be keep track of data, right? And so I'm kind of more of an end user. I create trends, I create reports with it. So by no means am I creating applications, but I can create things in simplified data, kind of like pivot tables and make live reports and go live, look for data. It's something that's pretty simple. So if you think about if you think of like if you were to mix Microsoft Excel, but easy to make charts with Google prompts to find out and use data and make time series data and stream it live. Excel's not very good at that. So I'm trying to think of a program that is really good at streaming data live. But I guess maybe more of like not a Robinhood's a bad sort of thought, but something that can stream data live and multitudes of data. You can create charts very quickly. Creating charts in Excel is difficult. Like, it's not fun. Not that saying, creating charts is fun, period. But I mean, there's worse things you could do. I'm an engineer. I like to make charts. Okay. Don't fucking make fun of me. But anyway, I don't do any of the real programming. I might come up with ideas to put into Palantir, but never have I made a Palantir script or anything like that in Python. We have a whole team that kind of does that. But what I basically did very early on with Foundry is I was just like, this is how I would use the product. And with that, they kind of created the first few applications. So did I create the applications? No. The collaboration of people much smarter than I am, software development engineers and forward development engineers at Palantir, collaborated with people and really intelligent people at UDOC to understand how we stream our data into the company and what data lakes we use and how to kind of connect all that stuff up into the background, what clouds we use, yada, yada, yada. Stuff that's literally just way over my head. But that's a little bit of how I use Foundry. I use Contour. I use Fusion workbooks to kind of create and collect data. Quiver is most of the time where I'm staying, using data from Quiver to kind of use as a repository to understand trends. How much oil has this well made? How much water is it producing? Where is that trend kind of going? And that's mostly what I do as a reservoir engineer, and looking at pressures a lot as well. So anyway, clickbait mastery, man. That's what I do. You can see Palantir develop a cybersecurity product to compete with the CrowdStrikes of the world, and that's one of our platforms. And then with Palantir Security, use that as a selling point. I mean, they kind of do this with Apollo, right? Apollo allows you to understand what version of software people have deployed on their desktop, what level of security they have on their desktop. And so Apollo is a lot with this. And I think it was Citrix, or I'm trying to remember, I'm messing up the name, but Cisco just did a presentation at AIPCon June 1st that talks a little bit about what they're using Apollo for. And it might not be verbatim what you're talking about, because different products from different companies are going to be different, of course. But I think that there is a cybersecurity element to this in Apollo. And that's part of the thing that's beautiful about Apollo, is like, you probably don't even realize that you're using it, because, I would not use Apollo, right? I'm not the one that's giving out privacy rights or updating software within a certain organization, but people within my organization might be using it to an extent, or at Palantir, they might be using it on the background for us, right? So nobody maybe in our business is using it, because we don't have a lot of software refreshes, but we do have a lot of security concerns. Some data within the organization is secret, some of it's confidential. So certain people have access to certain data. When you move teams, sometimes you get, restricted data, or restricted access to data. So I'm sure to an extent, Apollo solves that. But if you're really curious about that, feel free to look at the Cisco presentation. So you'll pin me a good article on Twitter that helps make sense of the tax liabilities for cover call. Much appreciated. I would be curious about that. I'm with you. I don't think that initial purchase of the shares would immediately become short-term. Want to know more about the strategic partnership with Rubicon? What better for bad reputation than cleaning up and becoming an ESG partner, a recycling ESG partner? I don't know much about it, man. I'm just going to be honest. I saw that went through. And a few people told me that they were buying Rubicon, but other than that, don't know. You need to live stream more often. We all learn a good amount hearing your thoughts and seeing your thought process on topics discussed. I appreciate that a lot. It's some of the thoughts, and actually it was Chris Patel. So kudos to him. Make sure you guys message him on Twitter and follow him on Twitter. His link's in the description. He's another guy that I like to bounce ideas off of. Very smart. And has the gift of gab to me, as like I do as well. But I think he has a very good perspective on a lot of these things. And it was him that I'll either, even if it's the same topic, have him on, and I'd love to hear his perspectives. So more of like a part 2, if you will. But we went over 2 very cool topics yesterday and today about evaluating stocks and looking at share buybacks today. And I'd love to hear his perspectives as well. So anyway, do you think Google will ever pay dividends? I'm sure it will at some point. Right now, I think they'll stick to the share buybacks, which I think they'll do really well at. But I think right now also they're such in a growth trajectory still that it won't make sense for them to say pay dividends. The thing that's nice about buybacks is you can stop them without getting penalized. If you stop paying a dividend, people lose their effing minds. So a little bit of thoughts for that one. But my hope is, at the time being, Google will just continue to buy back shares, on the order of 1% to 2% a year. I'd be fine with that. What do you think about buying defense contractors like Lockheed, Raytheon as a hedge for Taiwan tensions? Intel, global foundries could also be a good play, maybe. For future of Lockheed and Intel, I would defer to my friend Cole. I did make some money on Lockheed, thanks to Cole for introducing it to me. I've always wanted to own a defense contractor, but I saw it get to like forget what it was. I made like $50 a share or something like that. I didn't have many shares, but it was one of those times where I was just looking to consolidate, and unfortunately it hit the chopping block. So I did have Intel. I did have Lockheed. I've had Intel in the past, many times over the past. I was selling a lot of puts on it, and never got assigned any shares. It was like almost for a while, for like 8 quarters in a row. It was easy as hell. You'd basically wait for the stock to tank after earnings, and then sell puts. And over the next quarter, it would basically rise up in price, and you'd make a crap ton of money selling puts. And then you would wait until it would tank again on the next earnings and sell puts. And from like late 2000 to 2022, that's all you would do. Me and GW and Dave from Hidden Freedom would do that like it was clockwork. And it wasn't a lot of money, but it was enough to definitely be sure that you did it every quarter. So yeah, love that. If you wanted to use Palantir software out of schooling, do you think I should go into? I don't think it's really. Oh, I guess it depends, right? Do you just want to use it like I use it? Then I feel like you could go into nursing and go to Cardinal Health. I mean, you could go to a company that already uses it. And I feel like, you could have any various sorts of degrees. And I think it's going to get easier to access as well as we continue to expand into different, I say we, as Palantir continues to expand into different industries, like it's continuing to climb and climb. And I feel like it's in a lot of industries that people already kind of don't realize. It's just they are working with 1 or 2 companies at the moment. I think that'll continue to expand. If you want to be eligible to work at Palantir, or use Palantir and create applications within your company, then software engineering or something like that is probably the most prudent thing to do. But yeah, I feel like you don't need any sort of specific degree. You could be a nurse or a patient care technician, a PCT, and be able to use the software in some health systems today. Any feelings on BORR? I don't know, to be very frank. I have a BA in philosophy, but looking to get a real job. You say that, don't talk down on yourself about having a Bachelor of Arts in philosophy. You wouldn't think that Dr. Karp would be a billionaire with a doctorate in philosophy, but here we are. So it's not necessarily about the degree in which you have. It's really how you understand how the world works. And this is going to get too philosophical even for this conversation, maybe too political. But I think this mentality that you need to have a certain degree to be able to be successful, I think it depends on what your personality is. If you're somebody that needs to work for somebody else, and you don't have that wherewithal to be able to pick yourself up by the bootstraps and be an entrepreneur, then by all means, I think you'll have to get a different degree. But if you're somebody that knows how to make it work, you can make and bootstrap with ATM machines, vending machines. I've seen a lot of people do that. Arcade games, real estate, if you're able to figure it out. And so I think it all just kind of depends on what you're trying to do with your life. If you're trying to live more flexible, I think being an entrepreneur might be good. You're going to work long hours, but it's hours at your pace, right? Versus if you want to do something that's a little bit more secure and kind of guaranteed, you could kind of claim that being an engineer is kind of guaranteed, but in reality, it's not. You can get laid off at any time. But anyway, that's more philosophical. And I think the thing that bothers me the most is because I think people that have the ability to be entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial and even folks that aren't all feel like they have to go down this path of getting some sort of degree, and you don't. But I think that we've indoctrinated in small schools from elementary school all the way to high school that you need to go to college in order to be something. Dude, you could be a plumber and fucking kill it. And I have a buddy who went to, I'm not going to say what state, I'm not going to call him out and what college he went to, but got a sports science degree, or maybe it was like a communications degree, and he ended up coming home and just working for his dad at a plumbing, and now he's kind of working and running the plumbing business and does really well. And when I went to Trinidad, working and living in Trinidad and Tobago for work in 2019 and 2020, they'd be like, "Oh, that dude's killing it." And you're like, "Oh, what does he do?" He was a plumber, contractor, woodworker, you know, mason. You'd be like sitting there probably thinking like, "What?" It's like, no, if you just do quality work, people are always building, people are always putting in plumbing, people are always going to need to make renovations on their home. So there's other abilities, trades work that you can do that might not necessarily require the degree that you might think. So anyway, it's like an Excel spreadsheet. There's cool real-time charts incorporated, so Excel and PowerPoint and steroids that show real-time data. Yes and no. It's in its simplest form. You want to simplify it like that. Of course, you could say Foundry is just that, but it's the fact that you're able to have the security piece associated with all your data. All that data is organized into appropriate categories on your behalf, which is the ontology piece, right? So it's taking in streaming data in that you don't have to go and manipulate. You don't have to manually enter. Of course, there is documents and stuff that you have to manually enter, but the thing that's nice is we literally have hundreds of thousands of pressure sensors, temperature sensors on an entire offshore facility. So you have to think, I'll just put it in perspective. We have over, let's just say 20, 30 wells in one of our facilities that I manage. And with that, every time you have like a juncture in the pipe or it flows to a different part of the facility, there's a pressure sensor in there. And so before it goes from the bottom of the well, when it produces from the perforations of that well, so that by the time it probably gets to the lact meter, which is where we hand over transfer to the midstream company, I'm sure it sees over 100, 150 pressure and temperature sensors. And so to be able to understand where that molecule comes from and be able to track it throughout the facility is pretty impressive. And I would like to see Excel or PowerPoint or anything like that be able to stream the data in the quickness and speed at which Palantir is able to do it. And the thing that's nice about it is if there's any updates, you don't have to shut down your effing computer. The thing that's nice about it is that you open up Google Chrome, and let's just say they made a software update. All you have to do is hit refresh on Google Chrome. You don't have to restart the computer or anything like that. And literally anytime you click to go to a different web page, it's probably going to go on in the background and even know. And that's part of the benefit of Apollo, right? Whereas like, say you were to have to make your Excel update or a PowerPoint update, so you have to shut down your entire operating system. And, so talk about real case on the fly sort of abilities. And maybe it's not life or death for a company like UDOC, because generally speaking, we don't really have those sorts of software update needs if we're just looking at Quiver, right? Of course, I'm not saying that safety is not important. Of course, safety in oil and gas industry is very important. What I'm saying is the changes of the pressure monitoring or the temperature monitoring, doubt there's going to be a lot of software updates associated with that versus somebody that's building a tool on the fly, right? You might have that need for Apollo very quickly where you want to test out a certain criteria for somebody in the business and trial it for somebody else and see if they struggle through it and who's doing it better, what user interface looks better. So you have that ability to do trial and errors with something like an Apollo. So there's a lot of use cases associated with that. But anyway, if you want to use that as your simplest form, yes, it is an Excel and PowerPoint that is not focused on user experience or ease of use. It's more so focused and based around data usage. And that's probably the best way I can explain it is like everything we've done to this day and age, Microsoft, Apple, is generally speaking based around user experience and user interface. And I'm not saying that Palantir has a shitty user interface or anything like that. In fact, it's pretty simple to use and it's gotten way better over time. But the thing that's beautiful about it is it's focused around data. So the ability to make something usable in terms of what problem you're trying to solve is going to be better using a Palantir operating system than Excel or PowerPoint, because Excel and PowerPoint are used and made for ready off the shelf, not customizable or very uncustomizable, and mostly focused around user ability to be able to pick it up quickly versus the Power Engine. And so that's mostly the focus around it. Should offer end-to security product and enterprise cloud software like CrowdStrike and Zscaler. Like I said, I think Apollo is that product. Maybe they'll have gaps, but I honestly think that is the product that Apollo is really trying to solve. Like button to 0, I agree. It's obvious. So thank you for the reminder for everybody that doesn't understand that. Like button 20, agreed. Chris Communicatarian, super diligent, invaluable to listen to. And I think Chris is also somebody that demonstrates what benefit you can get by being a super diligent, doing a lot of due diligence and research sort of investor. And so I think a lot of people just assume, and this is another topic for another day, that you can just whimsically buy a stock and magically you're going to become a millionaire. And I just don't think that that's true. And I think you need, if you're going to buy individual stocks, you need to do a lot of due diligence with it. Chris and I drive well together. I like that. I appreciate that. I like the back and forth candor on disagreements you have to be on Amit's live stream. Yeah, man. I love Amit. He likes a certain type of person on his channel. He likes people that drive a lot of hype and entertainment factor, and that's just not me, I guess. And I don't have a bad relationship with Amit, but I think he prefers other people on, which is fine. It's his channel, and I think he'd do well with it. And I respect him immensely. He's a great platform, but I'm just not that. I'm not that type of dude to just drive hype for driving hype. And I'm a little bit more central when that, like, I'll get excited. Like, I'm excited Palantir's at $20, but I'm not gonna like tell everybody and their mom to buy it and buy the hype. And and I think I also have a longer wavelength than a lot of people on YouTube. And so with that longer wavelength, I think I don't resonate well, because a lot of people are just like, hey, funny man, you look like Chris Farley. Your last name's Farley too. So tell me a joke and tell me what stock ticker to buy. Otherwise, I'm getting the fuck out. And so I think that's kind of why I think, I don't resonate well with entire audiences, is because I have that long-term time horizon. But I think people also are starting to recognize there's a community around the long-term investment strategy. And so I think if we continue to build that, that would be beautiful. I would love that. Gage, appreciate you coming on, man. Haven't talked to you in a while, so appreciate you. It's how you use the degree. Degree is just a piece of paper showing employers you have discipline to stick with a goal and finish degree and follow rules. I agree with that. I think more people should realize that. Working at college, there'll be 70% fewer people getting degrees. Agreed. I think a lot of people go to college just because the education system tells them to do so. Trust me, I would love to be wealthy enough where I could send my kids to college for the experience and get an arts degree or something that they could barely use. But, for right now, I think a lot of people, they go to college expecting some sort of 6-figure job coming out, and they just don't go to college for that particular degree. It's like you almost have to, and I tell this to people all the time with the stock market or any sort of thing, you almost have to start out with your end goal in mind. So if your end goal is to go to college and get a degree, well, it's like, well, you're gonna get it, right? Like, it's not that you're not going to get that. It's just, is it going to be useful afterwards, I guess is the question. And, philosophy degrees are still useful. I think it also depends on what situations you put yourself in. Some people I know get political science degrees and end up working on Goldman, and like at Goldman Sachs and stuff like that. So I think that, people think that the degree is more important than it really is. I think exactly what Ryan Evers said. I think if you specifically focus on getting internships and getting your foot in the door and persistence, then I think you'll end up really well. I'm going to answer a few more, and hopefully I get to the bottom and call it quits, because I still need to eat dinner and shoot the shit and relax for the day. But the world is leaning towards individuals' worth trumps the degree's worth. I agree. Partially about showing the completion of the things you started. I agree. Well, now I see that Foundry does. It's almost like an AI system and organizes and pre-processes your data too. Yeah, like that's pretty much it. Like it takes a little bit of time. So for example, if somebody were to just pick up an AI platform, this is the beauty of AIP. Somebody were to just pick up like an AIP equivalent, they couldn't just use AIP without basically getting their data into Foundry. And same thing with like, this is part of the problem that I see a lot of companies will have is they just expect to get up and running on an AI platform. So everyone's talking about AI, digital revolutions and basically refreshing their digital footprints within organizations. And what's the word I'm looking for? There's a crunchy word that everybody uses in terms of the digital strategies and stuff like that. So what people are gonna end up being in a problem with is basically the ontology, right? There's so much data today, in basically trying to look it up is going to be a huge problem if you don't have it organized appropriately. And so you need to figure out what the ultimate category is. What's the subset? What is, the parent to that? What's the child to that? What's the grandchild to that particular subset of data? And it's basically just like putting headings on your data and streaming it 24/7. So for example, if you're like, I need to know the pressure data at the well bore for this particular well, oil well or something like that. If you don't have your data organized appropriately in AIP or just in, Foundry as a whole, you're going to get a lot of pressure gauges. Is it going to be for that particular well? Maybe not. Maybe. Is it going to be at the place within the wellbore that you want? Is it going to be on top sides on the facility? And so that ontology piece becomes very important, specifically if you're doing a lot of factory work or just work in general. Same thing with like patient data at healthcare systems. Like if you're looking for when's the last time this person got an operation, you don't care about what their birthday is, right? So it might give you a date, but is it giving you the right date? Is it giving you their time of death? Like when you look at, hey, did this person ever have heart surgery? It just shoots you back a random piece of like date. And you're like, what date is this? And you look and it's like the birthday. It's like, that's not what I'm asking, right? So even if you sign up for something like an AIP and you just look up like, I need Billy John's birthday, and you don't have the right guardrails set up or even ontology set up, it's going to be a nightmare. It's going to give back gobbledygook. And that's what people have problems with like BARD and stuff like that. And the beauty of AIP, and I think the beauty of some of these other, systems that will be coming out, maybe Palantir's alone in this and maybe it's not, but I'm assuming that Snowflake is going to try to do the same thing. But the integration piece and categorization of public data and private enterprise data is going to be huge. But if your private enterprise data isn't categorized in an ontology, you're screwed, right? It's like going to find a book. This is a perfect analogy. So maybe if you guys remember using like the library categorization, in rows and stuff like that. Imagine now, and it got easier with time, but you remember you used to have to like go alphabetically and it had like certain numbers. So you had to go to like A.779 to be able to find this fucking book. It's the same sort of setup. You're in a massive library with tons of data, tons of books, tons of things. And you have that specific book that you want to find, but if there's no system set up, you're literally just going to be walking around with literally hundreds of thousands of books on the shelf. The data's there, but you have no idea how to get to it. And so the ontology is building basically your library system. It's your model library, right? And that allows you to kind of search data when you need it. And so proprietary data. So just like Google has Google search, it's the same thing for Foundry, right? You have the ability to search up your data. There's a user interface to look at it. And so then all you're doing then with AIP is adding another layer. You're you're basically having somebody search on your behalf and using simpler language to be able to do the same things. So you can't do that without an ontology, right? Thoughts on PayPal? I don't know. How much time has using Foundry saved me? How much money has it saved the company? It's all public. You just got to know what UDOC stands for. It's a shame it's going to make UDOC so good before it goes to zero. UDOC to zero, man. Palantir hitting $500 tomorrow. Actually, I think it hit $500 after hours. Tesla sell didn't age well, but luckily I put most of the profits into Palantir, so you're up. Definitely something to humble you. Sometimes selling covered calls is the best thing to do. I do live in a van down by the river, my guy. So good call. Union workers are in demand. That's true. Up and to the right. I like that idea. Just got here. Didn't know you were live. What's going on? Yeah, trying to be live by 9 p.m. My time, 10 p.m. Eastern. So, and Chris Patel's is trying to be on there with me. So I appreciate that. I'm in, like stirring the pot. I know your strengths, and I don't buy the hype or try to push anything. More in my camp, investment management. See where you're coming from. I get him in, and Amit's young. He's trying to find stocks that he's really hyped about, and he's at an age, as am I. Really, I'm more of an old man to an extent, and the fact that I invested in Palantir at all has really opened up a new lens for me in 2020, which led me to several other small speculative positions that have done quite well. But I get it. He's younger. And with that, you have a little bit more short-term focus and anxiety, not anxiousness in a good way, and excitement about the stock market and learning and stuff like that. So I was very much in the same space, 22, 23, 24, 25, like he is. But I got really hooked on dividend stocks, and that's what really kind of got me up in arms. Can it support multiple users at the same time looking at the same file cloud? Yeah, no problem. Maybe updating the file with multiple users having access. Yeah, and it has version control. Like literally, I was doing something in a file, my specific file that many people have access to. So if anybody's ever curious, they can be like, okay, this is secure. Matt has this file already. They can make a simple change to it if they have the right. They have the read-write access, I'll say, which is given by, I'm assuming, some sort of background. Maybe it's Foundry, maybe it's Apollo. I don't really know. But it's instantaneous. I guess you can apply for read-write access, and I guess depending on who owns that particular file. But anyway, it's getting too much into it. But yeah, people can update things. So I accidentally saved over somebody's file. They freaked out. They started building it from scratch again. I was like, dude, what are you doing? And basically just went to the version control. And I was like, dude, this is version, we're on version 32. Just go back to version 30. That's your version. Sorry, I fucked up your shit. But they had already wasted an hour trying to rebuild everything. And I felt bad because it literally took me 5 seconds to be like, oh yeah, sure. Just revert back to the old version. And they were literally upset because I don't know, they were trying to rebuild it from scratch, and it took me 5 seconds. So yeah, that's easy. We could both be looking at the same file, no problem. Yeah, you could pull the data. Yeah, if somebody wanted to pull the pressure data gauge, create a new template and focus on something, they could look at that pressure data gauge. I could look at it at the same time. There's no problem with that. There might be, I guess, some issues if you're both trying to work on the same, you could both be looking at the same file but hitting save at the same time on the same file. Say you're both this is the master file for this particular well or facility or something like that. You both hit save. I mean, I don't really know what happens. Does it automatically refresh for you if that other person hits save a minute before you do? That I don't really know. I've never really ran into that case. But if two people want to look at the same file at once, yeah, it's not a big deal. much. Love to come shoot the shit with you about Palantir product on the pod. I'm a product manager for a data product, and I love this company. Yeah, man, we do Palantir Weekly every week. Amit, I've done plenty of interviews for Amit. So, yeah, feel free to check out some of those, and more than happy to chat about any questions you might have. I'm not a super user. I'm not great at using it, right? Like I don't make the products. I don't make the applications. Sorry, I don't make the applications, but I do create products with I create products with the operating system, let's call it, because if I just keep saying product, it's going to get confusing. So I use Foundry every day, sometimes in a very, I guess, creative manner, sometimes just to look at stuff, look at data. Matt is the man. Thank you. Much appreciated, my guy. Yeah, Central Standard Time, my guys. Cut on AI unfold. What is your cut on AI and how it's going to unfold in driving better efficiencies in the oil and gas area? I have lots of thoughts. Digital twins, more alerting. So we've been able to build some dashboards within Foundry that kind of give you an idea as to like when things are out of spec, but having the AI actually like give you a phone call. I mean, sometimes it'll send emails, but like will it give you a phone call to like make a decision, and can that decision be appropriately moved up the ranking system for like hierarchies within decision making rights within an organization. So connecting Foundry with Gotham and artificial intelligence to kind of like spur that at the moment. I think that there's possible opportunities there. I could go on for a while, but I think the biggest thing that AI is going to do in terms of driving efficiency is people, a lot of, I would say 10, 15, maybe, some days more, some days less. I'd say on average 10 to 15% of my day is just relaying data to people. And so if people have the ability, or AIP has the ability to give I don't want to say common person because it makes it seem like I'm talking down, but give a commercial person or a non-technical person, a more commercial focused individual, or a particular manager or something like that, the ease of looking up data versus me. Like I'll look up well data, but I know what the well's called and I'll know how to basically call it up. But if somebody wants to use the short name for it, or just wants to have one prompt instead of having to go to multiple prompts to look it up, or something like that, or create a brand new analysis on Quiver or something like that to be able to pull up the gauge, I would be the one that would probably like create that from scratch. But if you have AIP and you're just like, what's the last 12 months look like for this particular pressure point on this particular facility or something like that, a manager could type that in. And once again, it gets very important about ontology, right? If a manager says a specific well name, that particular data point needs to be kind of listened to, or something as simple as what's been the production for this particular facility over the past 12 months. If you don't have the right ontology, like it could pull out a multitude of different, and guide rails, of course, as well. You could pull out a multitude of different data points from that. What gauge are you looking at? What meter are you looking at? At what point, like, are we actually calling it sales versus production? If you have an FPSO, it's going to be different than if you have a pipeline that you're distributing into. So plenty of thoughts about what AI can help with. Can you hook up your UPS account so as soon as you enter your order for UPS and picks it up and it would update into Foundry system? I don't know what SMB means, but small businesses, I guess. Hook up to your UPS account. Update the Foundry. I guess I'm trying to understand what you're trying to do. I mean, in terms of logistics and understanding UPS's pathways, yes, I can understand that, but I'm trying to understand. I'm sure it can be done. I'm not 100% following what you're asking it to do, and it's hard to do in like a 200 character prompt. My man wishes investing at 25. Yeah, investing's a good time, man. Appreciate Matt's knowledge and guidance. Thanks, man. Appreciate that. Dividend income investing and building out a position in NEP to capitalize on slow version to the mean on clean energy stocks. I was looking at NEP the other day, more specifically NextEra yesterday. Was it yesterday? And very impressed by their business. Are they a little richly traded? Yes, but I think that comes with the renewables premium, and I think it also comes with the growth that they're going to see over the coming decade. So I think it's interesting. NEP, I know they pay like a 5 or 6% dividend or something like that. So pretty good on that end. Yo, what's going on? Bloom Energy Innovation and Fuel Sec Technology is doing fascinating things in energy and renewable predictive analytics and AI. That's pretty interesting. I need to look into that. Hearing the name, NEP is a good one. Calculate the efficiency gains of their software for your company and the problems you want to tackle. Those have been made public, so I won't speak on that. But I'm sure if you look up UDoc, which is the company I work for, or if you figure out who UDoc is, it's very public. A lot of people quote it on a lot of Palantir videos. I work for one of the largest unions. Dude, you'll always have a job. Talk on Enphase yesterday. I'm very excited about what they can bring 3 to 5 years down the road, let alone 10. I don't know much about that piece. What I just did was to look at the net income and what it looked like from a valuation perspective. Vitaly and Carlos are definitely better folks to adhere to that, and give an idea as to how the future looks. I try to understand. Yes, I agree that the total addressable market for solar is large, but the thing that I can't fully understand is, let's just say they're able to get a 10%, a module into 10% of the solar panels, right? I don't know how many hundreds of billions of dollars or tens of billions of dollars those solar panels will be, but then Enphase is a portion of that. So that's like dividing a market share of market share, and that's where it kind of just goes over my head, and I don't really know. Drink of choice, if it's alcoholic drink, I would say an old fashioned. Can't complain with that. Union leaders in your space, how can I talk them away from Word and Teams? Hey man, we still use Teams as well. I don't have that. I don't have that sort of insight as to how you can get them away from that. Teams has their problems. I think that what you'll realize is the reason why Teams is useful is because it integrates well with Office 365. So, but anyway, all right. Well, people are starting to drop off. Means it's probably getting late for a lot of people, and I also have to eat dinner. But as always, leave comments in the comment section if you're curious about a topic I didn't get to it. I stayed on about 40 minutes longer than I wanted to, but I enjoyed the conversation. So it's not to say that it was painful or anything like that. But hope to do this again with Chris on a regular basis. And let me know if you guys have any thoughts about what you want to hear. And yeah, plenty of thoughts, whether it's philosophical conversations, stock talks, deep dives into specific companies. We're all ears. And Chris has opinions as well. And so looking forward to getting back to him tomorrow. But share with friends and family, especially if you enjoy this, or find the topic of use. And I'll talk to you guys on the next one, hopefully tomorrow. Cheers.